sword. It was larger, thicker, heavier, and cruder than any normal blade. By all accounts, it was no more than a hulking mass of iron.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of DumpStat. I am your host, Lich Brill, the devil incarnate, the villain of this podcast. And next to me, as always, is my co-host, Doc. He's back from toe sucking.
Hello. How are you, buddy?
We're so happy to have you. It's great to see you. I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah.
And before we get into this happy little reunion, I want to talk about some of the things we have going on DumpStat. We have a couple of announcements before we get into a big old episode, and I'm really excited about it. So, top of the ticket, we got a Patreon. In that Patreon, we have many people, not yet, but soon to be, will be donating to our podcast. In this, you will give us money, and we will give that to our goblin so that he can continue to edit and do amazing things. Visually, audibly, he does it all, and it's fantastic, and we love him for it. And on top of that, we also give special benefits to those of you who are patrons. That's right, you get special things like our Discord and topics on what we're going to do next. And if you donate enough money, I'll give you a call and a kiss, maybe. We'll see what happens. We also have a Ko-Fi where if you don't want to do the monthly package, just give us a quick donate. A couple of $5 here, $5 there. It helps us out the show, and we really appreciate it.
Yep.
Patreon.com/DumpStatPodcast.
On top of all of that, we also want to tell you that if you donate right now, you have advantage on everything in life. Way to go! So we have a couple of patrons who are awesome. Doc, who are they?
All right. So I've got 2 patrons that have already signed up, and these guys are great. And I've talked with them a little bit, and they're fantastic. So big thanks to Ethan and big thanks to Anthony, very first 2 patrons. And I'm really excited to work with these guys and talk with them. I'm not sure about you, but I know that we were spitballing ideas in the Discord server for a little bit, and already we're getting some cool ideas from them. So I'm excited to, do some episode stuff. And actually what we're talking about today is actually something that one of the patrons voted on.
That's true.
So that's exciting. So yeah.
Oh, yes.
Get in on the fun. Join Ethan, join Anthony, and thank you too for being great supporters. We really, really, really appreciate it.
We love you guys. We love you so much. And on top of our amazing patrons, we have on top of that Rime of the Frost Maiden. If it's not already out, I know I've been saying it for a while, at least 2 episodes. It's going to be out very, very shortly. We just need to finish up with what we have, and soon it will be released. I will be DMing 4 players as they go through Icewind Dale, a winter wonderland where they will battle things and fight things and RPG things. And on top of all of that, you will be able to listen. Isn't that exciting?
Yep.
The Lich himself will be DMing, and we will have jokes and hints and tricks and tips all along the way for DMs especially. I'm learning that Rime of the Frost Maiden is not DM friendly. It's a lot. It's a big old thick tome where you need a lot of big old brain meat to help work through it. So I want to help you make sure that you do the best that you can with the module. I will train you on how to be the greatest
The greatest what?
the greatest frozen deity of all time. You see, the problem is if you talk too fast and you don't have a beer to help yourself out, it gets really, really rough. I'm a drunkard. So we are going to be talking today about giving your players magic items. This is something that many DMs fear.
Yes.
Mostly on the basis of when you give a player a magic item, it's like giving a mouse a cookie. Bad things can happen, I guess. I don't know. I haven't actually read the book.
Well, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. And then eventually, if you give a mouse a yacht, he's going to ask for the world. That's how that progression goes.
Oh, okay.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It
sounds like it's good for preschoolers. For sure.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah,
100,000%.
Capitalism.
So when we look at magic items, there is a wide berth of magic items. And for a new DM, wanting to play with those magic items with their players makes sense. You want to give them things for them to toy around with and play with.
Yeah.
But the issue is giving it to them might make the balance of your game a little bit wonky.
Mm-hmm.
You might give someone something that's a little bit too powerful. Maybe it stacks on an ability that they already have. You're not always sure what the effect of a magic item can be. So if you're a new DM and you are plotting to give your party maybe a magic item here or a magic item there, I am hopefully going to be able to give you a couple of tips to maybe avoid some of the early pitfalls, because I can say for one that early on in my DMing career, I used to huck magic items that were like insane to people. Yep. I was just like, yeah, it's the Wand of Orcus. He found it in an attic. What's going on? And people were like, well, okay. Yeah, of course I'm going to use it. What was it? Grandpappy's? Fine. You need to be able to see your players, what their abilities are, and what you have planned coming up, and how a magic item is going to affect that. Some magic items have next to no effect. I'm looking at you, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, who has a shitload of very uncommon to common magic items that aren't really going to game break anything. And I think are great to throw at your party at any time.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because there's so many unique and interesting magic items. And a lot of the times I struggle as a DM wanting to give people these items because it's fun. It's fun to give somebody a wand of magic missiles and then, they get to use it. It's fun to give them the longbow, the oath bow. That's like, I'm going to freaking kill all of you, and it's like oaths to just destroy your enemies and never miss. It's like, those things are cool. You want people to experience that. But if you give a player a cookie at the beginning of the campaign, then, well, they may ask for a glass of milk, but they also may just destroy the glass of milk and everything else you set up.
That's true.
So it's definitely a balancing act of what can I give the players that's fun, that's not going to destroy my game. And there's a couple of things that we can talk about of how to kind of manage that. So I'm excited.
Right.
This is a great topic.
I really think the first thing that you need to do, and I know it sounds dumb, but the first thing that you need to do is actually read what the magic item does.
Yep.
I know that some of you know some of these items off the back of your hand. Like you're just like, oh, okay, bag of holding. Sure.
Yeah.
You put things in the bag, there's things in the bag. But a bag of holding actually has a space and a radius. And if classically you put a bag of holding in another bag of holding, shit goes wild. So you need to be aware of those little effects, because here's the thing. The second you give a magic item to your player, the first thing that your player is going to do is read the description of said magic item. And they're going to start thinking, because unlike you, the DM, you have so many tools at your disposal. You set up the entire game. All the monsters in the monster manual are at your whim. But for a player, they only have what's in their backpack. And if one of those things is a wand of lightning, then they're going to read what the fuck a wand of lightning does, how far it can shoot, and most importantly, how many times can I strike Granny before she hits the ground?
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of things that you need to think out when you are actually breaking down what a magic item does. And you need to cross-examine what that magic item does versus what your party is not only like, but what your party is filled with.
Yep. And I think, too, something else that I think gets overlooked with magic items is kind of like, oh, you found, as you said, like you found the Wand of Orcus in an attic, right? Or you found this +1 sword, in this ancient temple. And it's like, oh, cool. What does the sword do? It's a +1 sword. And it's like, how do you make those moments with the magic items cooler? How do you turn a +1 sword into the best magic item that you're going to give the players that campaign?
And it's also, but like you said, it's how do you make that in a story perspective? When you look at the magic item, you need to break down what it does, and then you need to go, okay, if I am going to throw this in, which by the way, again, reading's important, but after you take that into consideration and you go, yes, green light, we're throwing it in.
Yeah.
How do you give it that gravitas? Because there are some magic items that, frankly, should just be bought at a store. Like just walk on up, grab it, thanks, sir, and the clerk waves and you walk out. Then there are other magic items that you need to scour a fucking tomb. You need to unveil the eye of God. You need to defeat a big bad. There are some magic items in the player's handbook that you can't just hand off to a player because that will look bizarre. It will look strange.
I mean, if someone buys a Mace of Terror in a magic shop, I would be pretty surprised. It's like a Mace of Terror is one of those items that you're only going to be able to really use it a few times per day, but it's going to be an item that is either made for that character, either by some group or order of people, or like a god, or like it's going to be a long lost artifact. And like you said, reading the description of an item is really, really, really important because I've got the Mace of Terror open. Let's read it. This magic item has 3 charges. While holding it, you can use an action to expend 1 charge to release a wave of terror. Each creature of your choice within a 30-foot radius extending from you must succeed on a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw or become frightened for you for 1 minute. While it is frightened then this way, the creature must spend its turn trying to move as far away from you as it can, yada, yada, yada. Most of that is general frightened stuff. And then you can also see other things. Okay, it's a weapon, it's a mace, it's a rare item, so that gives you an idea of how much it can be used. And then the mace regains 1d3 expended charges daily at dawn. So, all these things considered, this gives us some context clues, right? So, okay, this item is probably going to be best used with like groups of people. DC 15 is pretty good. It's not crazy strong. So this is probably useful against smaller enemies, but also like large groups of people. So thinking about this item, right? And not only just like, okay, well, this mace needs to be given to like, a heavy hitter cleric or a fighter of some kind.
Right.
I'm also thinking like this needs to be given to a player that's maybe like part of a religious order, or maybe the orc fighter that worships Orcus. Maybe I need to give it to them because maybe Orcus is like, this sounds fun. Like, how about you take this and take it into town and see what kind of, stuff you can stir up.
Sure. But when you actually have that mace, though, I do want to push back on one thing you said, that it's rare or that there's a rarity to it.
Right.
I am personally of the opinion that the descriptions for not only monsters, but for the actual magic items are far more important than the CRs or the actual rating of the item and or monster.
Sure.
And while it's a good broad brush to kind of help early DMs, it can confuse people. For instance, this is a rare item that we're mentioning right now. I still think with that DC save that it should be around probably given to 6, 7, 8. But it's a rare item, which means it probably, if you're going by category, should go maybe 10, 11, 12. So
interesting.
You start to have that weird balancing issue. It's the same thing I've always said about the immovable rod. The immovable rod is not a super artifact, but it fucking should be. Because if you have a clever player, they can do almost anything with an immovable rod. If you get 2, you have a ladder to the gods, my friend. An immovable rod is a rod that you press a button on and it stays.
Yep.
And that is it.
Yep. Now, that's all it does.
Some of you might think, big whoop. But others of you go, it's time to think of thermodynamics. You start to wonder about the strange possibilities that you could have. What if you're in a wagon chase?
Yep. Yep, just boop, and then that next wagon just boom, just explodes because it ran into an immovable rod.
What happens when you put a immovable rod in front of a dragon or in the dragon's mouth?
Boop.
There's a lot of questions. I'm just saying. And that's one of those things where you have people go, well, it has a lower. Actually, I probably should just look up what the actual rarity on an immovable rod is because I have it open. But you look at the actual category and you think, oh, well, it must be, something I can just toss out at level 2. And everyone goes, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. What are you doing? And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is when you look at categories and when you look at these broad brushstrokes that we use to kind of help new DMs walk, I want you to know that your second grade teacher who really wanted you to read more was right. Reading is the proper way to handle the DMG or anything in the monster manual. Yep. It's just the right way to go about it, just because you won't be surprised if you read and then digest what you're reading.
Yeah.
So in the case of the immovable rod, hang on a minute. Can we please have some music as I look this up?
Here. I got you.
You got it? Okay.
It is an uncommon item.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, is that as far as like magic item tables goes, and like in the DMG, it's on table B, which is the first like decent magic item table that you roll on for levels 1 to 4 for characters. So it could very easily get into the hands of characters very early. I know in 2 of my campaigns, I've given them immovable rods before. And yeah, you kind of have some characters that like use it really like a genius piece of engineering like it is. And then some people don't. And that's okay.
Right.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's not, you don't just look at, okay, it's an uncommon magic item, it's fine, right? You need to look at the context clues of like, okay, what are the abilities? What are the DCs? What does the thing actually do? And maybe just ask somebody who's not in your campaign, like, hey, I'm thinking about giving my players this. What do you think of this item? And then they might say like, oh, well, you're giving them this? Like, oh, I had a player that did this with it and it was amazing. And then you think, that would break my campaign. Or you have, other situations where it's like, oh, well, like I was thinking about giving my players this. And it's like, oh, that's cool. But like, I would only really give it to like, a Dragonborn paladin who is, worshiping Talos. I don't know.
Sure.
And then it's like, you know what? I have a Dragonborn paladin that's worshiping Talos, and I think that would fit great. It really depends on what you read and if it fits, and if you can think of a way that it would be really well implemented. I say, go for it. That's a good item to put into your campaign. Yeah, don't put in the legendary wondrous item, at level 2. Maybe wait on that, but like even the Mace of Terror, like, yeah, maybe give that to a character who's leveling up from 4 to 5. It's a little bit early for that sort of item, but like leveling up to 4 to 5, they get a note and a delivery from their religious order saying, oh, well, you have to go smite all the bad people. So here's this weapon courtesy of the order, right? That's cool.
Right.
Maybe that character hasn't found the magic item yet. So you hand deliver the most powerful magic item yet to them.
Or something that else you can do is give your party a broken legendary magic item.
Ooh.
That is a great hook for a campaign.
Yes.
Because once they have that, something that's just going to infest their minds is, fuck, how do we fix it? God damn it, I want to have this. I want this in my life. I need to figure out a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do agree with you that wondrous legendary items should be kind of left at the doorway when it comes to very early levels. However, there are weird exceptions to the rule. For instance, one that I've seen...
There's never exceptions to the rules.
What are you doing?
All right. Yeah.
Gotta throw out the book.
Yeah.
But one of those exceptions that I greatly enjoy, because I saw a Reddit thread where a person gave their party a cubic gate. A cubic gate is a wondrous legendary item that allows you to plane shift.
Oh, Lanta.
And it lets you to go to, I believe, 6 different planes, randomly selected by the DM.
Yep.
So what the DM did was give this cubit gate, like in a very Bilbo style, like I hand this off to you, to Frodo, in the same way the ring passed down. And he handed it over to his party at level 1. So now the entire concept of the campaign is based around traveling to different planes and surviving as a lower level party, jumping around to places like the Abyss, to the elemental plane of water. And my favorite one out of all of it, they went to Mechanus and had to have a court with a bunch of Modrons. You see, he wanted to explore the wider D&D multiverse, and he saw that as a great tool. Now, that is also a dangerous tool. There's a reason why plane shift is a high-level spell, and it's not easily taken, because jumping from reality to reality is not exactly what early players or adventurers should do. But he was gracious enough to allow them to jump to the plane of water, get on a little island, look around, be like, holy shit, what the fuck did we just do? There's a bunch of fish people. There's a way to handle it where it becomes a giant quest hook and not necessarily a big old burden, unless you press the Abyss button.
Yep.
So I do look at this as a way to maybe start a campaign. I don't want to put red tape necessarily on anything. You as a DM are allowed to do whatever you want with artifacts or legendary items, but read what it does.
Yes.
I cannot stress that enough. And it's one of the reasons why I want to warn players about this specific magic item. That for mostly DMs, warn DMs. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment to warn people about the deck of many things. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, God. All right. I'm going to pull this one up.
It's either famous or notorious, depending on what circles you travel in. In my personal experience, I believe the deck of many things to be one of the most baiting magic items for new players and DMs, and also one of the worst experiences you'll have in D&D.
Yeah.
The deck of many things is not to be used. Just it isn't. And when I say that, I mean you have a deck of cards that all do a random thing when pulled. You can announce how many cards you would like to pull from the deck, and you are locked in. If you say 3, it's 3. And for better or for worse, 3 cards are going to be pulled, and they do an immediate magical effect. And let me tell you, it is a fucking pain.
Yep.
Half the deck, almost more than half the deck, is negative.
Yep.
You will die, lose items, be crushed down to level 1 in some cases, lose tons of XP, get hunted by demons, death itself. There's a lot of things that aren't great about the deck. Now, of course, there are good things in the deck, but given just the law of statistics, most likely if you pick 2 or more cards, you will get hurt. And it really doesn't make sense as a player to want to pull from them, except for the law of randomness and ooh, how wacky. And if you're a DM and if you use the deck of many things, you can lose, theoretically, all of your players. Or they could flip alignment, they could get killed, they could just lose all their shit. It doesn't make a good story element for just everything to happen at once.
Yep.
I warn DMs and I warn players, the deck of many things is not a good idea. I have DM'd it and I have played it many a time. Almost every time it has been the worst experience in D&D, and there's no reason to use it. There just isn't. Now, what are your opinions of this mighty artifact?
So here's the thing. I think that you can use it effectively. However, it's going to take some work to set it up and get it right. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I actually think that Matt Colville has a video on the deck of many things specifically. And I think that in more wisdom than I can depart, you can get from his video about it. But one of the things that he actually recommends that I really like and want to impart to you since you're listening right now is stack the deck, right? Get a card prepared that the party will draw at the very top. You want to drop 50,000 gold on them? Put it on the top of the deck. If you want to give them Vizier, which allows them to basically ask a question and get a truthful answer to it within a year of drawing from the deck, go for it. If you want to give them the Void and just annihilate that player, I mean, there you go. Like, I'm sure. It's really up to you if you want to do that. But I think if you worked the deck a little bit, if maybe you do an incomplete deck of many things and you pull some of the, this is going to destroy the campaign, good and bad cards, then it might be interesting, right? Maybe put a quantifier of like, you can only draw one. You can homebrew the deck a little bit.
Sure. And there are a ton of homebrews of the deck of many things out there.
Yeah. And I think that for me, if you are having just kind of a fun, silly campaign and just kind of doing whatever, and you don't mind that sort of play, it's a great item. But I know that the majority of people playing D&D right now are kind of more into it for like following that storyline, right? Getting to the end of the campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to get to the end of the campaign, you should probably not have this item in your game. or at least have someone else controlling it rather than just giving the deck to the party, right? Because that's just going to be bad if you just give them the deck.
Well, I'm not a Matt Mercer man or a Christopher Perkins or even a Matt Mercer, dare I say, but I did recently, despite my own advice, run the deck of many things in my ongoing campaign recently. And I did this in the same vein of how I approached Curse of Strahd recently in our review with me and John. My intention was mainly to see if I could kind of get around my own problems with it. Now, I went a completely different angle than your friend did. My main goal was to present the deck as what it is, which is an evil thing.
Yep.
It's a very bad thing. So basically, my parties did a thing, saved a town, and a devil, a horned devil named, I think I named him Rex Nefarious or something like that, approaches them with their Yugoloth contact. And essentially, he is the gambler. He's the Kenny Rogers song. He's the entire embodiment of nefarious gambling. And he talks a little bit like Larry David because it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So he approaches the party and he's a devil. Like there's no bones about what's happening here. So I present that he said that you guys saved the town. So now you get to take a gamble with me. And he presents the deck on his hand. It literally manifests from his flesh below. And he says, take one.
Yeah.
The party, being wise, because they realize devils and contracts and deals and gambling is a very unwise thing. So they say, no,
yeah,
we don't want it. But the devil is pushing. And we have one party member who's a little bit more chaotic than the rest of them. So I want him to sow his wild oats, but also at the same time, allow the rest of the party to realize, holy shit, we should not be doing this. And they convinced him essentially to take one. And then the devil would ask the other two. And essentially, we had 3 people pulling from the deck that night. Now, I was furious at what was pulled. It wasn't game breaking, but you want to talk about improv of a DM. Holy fucking shit. The first one was the throne card, which means that the party member essentially not only gains a new proficiency and is suddenly very persuasive, but on top of that, he's royalty and he's a keep somewhere.
Yeah.
But that keep has monsters in it that you have to clear out. So he goes, holy shit, guys, I'm royalty. So that's fun.
Yep.
Then the next guy pulls, I believe, the idiot, which makes you pull another card after it knocks down your intelligence, and he's an artificer, so that's a fucking pain. And
no,
he draws the knight card, which is spectacular. So now he has a Warforged knight with him who's like, whatever you need.
no.
So he's dumber, though. So he's like, duh, whatever I need. And the final player, and this wasn't of my design, I saw him roll and I thought he got the void card.
Oh boy.
Because I randomized the table on my computer.
Okay.
He rolled and got the moon card. And I rolled 2. He got 2 wishes. He just got wishes. So, and here's the problem with Wish. Wish in D&D almost needs to be a monkey's paw, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But if you bend reality, reality sends to snap on back. And I like that concept.
Yeah.
You shouldn't mess with the fabric of space-time, otherwise the Modrons and Optimus Prime up in heaven is going to kick your ass. So he wishes, his first wish is to wish all the people who died back, right? Literally all of them back.
Ever?
Not ever, who died in the big calamity. So a giant phoenix attacked a town. So I had in my DM notes that this was the second attack of a phoenix. So it not only brought back the people from the first attack, but also the second attack from generations before. So why is my great grandmother back? It's a lot of fun.
Man.
So they have 2 generations of gnomes basically stacked on top of each other, all in different garb with different buildings. It's a lot of fun. And my players were like, what? Basically, they oversaved the town. And I love that concept. But on the flip side, he then basically wished for the MacGuffin. So the MacGuffin of the whole campaign is the Book of Vile Darkness. And he said, bring it here.
Oh my.
The book flops in front of the party. And there's this dead fucking, oh God. We have literally a manifestation of evil there. Now, I realized that I allowed the Deck of Many Things into my campaign.
Yep.
And it went as good as it could.
Yeah.
But I still want to mention that at the end of the day, the deck allowed for basically multi-generations of a town to manifest back into reality, and B, the MacGuffin of my entire campaign to just show up at the player's doorstep. So now, of course, I can spin that into other plot hooks. People can hunt the book. The town isn't exactly to have grandmas back. I get it. There's a lot of ways for the campaign to flourish forth. But I, for one, was improving my ass off.
Yeah.
And guys, I'm a seasoned DM. And let me tell you, if you're not, man, do me a fucking favor. Back up. Just don't use it. There are other alternatives. I think a great alternative to the Deck of Many Things is the Bag of Beans. I think the Bag of Beans is less chaotic and it's kind of a lot more fun.
Yeah, a lot of random things can happen with the Bag of Beans, and it makes it interesting, right? It's still extremely interesting when you use the Bag of Beans, all of its different effects and things, but none of them are going to just be like, your campaign, forget it.
If you want that element of randomness, either A, Bag of Beans, if you're a little bit more adventurous, maybe Iron Flask, but I personally really like the Wand of Wonder.
Yeah.
You make an elephant. It's a bit of a shrug, but it's random and it does different random things. And some of them are cool benefits. Some of them are summoning weird monsters, not even monsters, beasts. And sometimes it's just like, hey, we have a rhino. Fantastic. That's fun. I mean, if you're ever facing down a beholder and you just make a rhino, come on. That's what Magic's kind of supposed to do.
Stuff like that is great, but the Deck of Many Things is too
powerful.
It's too powerful and too random in how powerful it is to really be, it can be messy.
And you need to just think things through. I mean, I see a lot of early DMs kind of flip to the most powerful items. And they go, yeah, I'll chuck that at him. And it's like, no, what are you doing?
I think that, talking about the Deck of Many Things, moving back into how to give magic items to your players, I think that there's a couple of good notes in how talking about the Deck of Many Things there. One is being able to help identify exactly what the magic item does, aka, as you said, reading the magic item and what it does first. Second, making sure that it's thematic and interesting. Like you gave it to a gambler devil. I think that's fantastic. It also keeps just them from drawing from the deck of many things whenever.
Right.
Third, just making sure that like you're prepared for the consequences of whatever you're about to give, because the players are going to play with the toys that you give them. But as the DM, you're also playing with the toys that you give them every single time.
Right.
If you give them the +1 sword, you're going to have to compensate for that in how you think about your encounters and things. You know, if you give them a consumable magic item, you may not think about that magic item if they don't use it. You may just forget about it.
That's true.
We mentioned Critical Role a little bit, and I won't spoil it, but there was a recent event where one of the players in Critical Role basically like pulled out a magic item that they acquired in like the first third of the campaign, and literally like double the amount of time later they pulled out that magic item to pull off something heinous and like just heresy on like the DM's part. But I mean, it worked. It just worked, right? And it was an amazing player move, but you're going to have to be prepared for that when you give players magic items that like, yeah, like, you know, my plans might be foiled if I do this, but I'm going to have to be okay with that. Moving a little bit past that, this is something that I struggle with. When you give magic items. And I'm not saying like, okay, so like not at certain levels and stuff. Where do I put magic items in my dungeons and in my campaigns that it's going to feel good for the players when they find them? So it's not just like, oh, I found it in an attic, but when it's like, I earned this magic item, right? I got this. I went through this place. I rolled the 20. I did the thing to find this magic item. When do you do that? When do you bestow that to the players?
I think a good way of handling magic items, especially if they're of the more powerful type, is, again, we talked a little bit about before, the grandiosity behind certain monsters. There's a grandiosity behind certain magic items. And I think a good template, frankly, is to kind of look at Excalibur, the original OG magic item, in the sense that Excalibur is not only revered as a amazing sword that's invulnerable and magic, does all this cool shit, but it's also in a place of reverence and people want it. So something that I like to kind of play around with is if I look at a magic item that's, let's say, a flame tongue, a flaming sword, one of the things that I might immediately think of is, okay, I give this to a bad guy. I think having a bad guy hold on to a magic item gives it that reverence. That allows the party to defeat someone in battle and then take a thing from them. And that allows the battle to have a certain form of weight, as in we achieved something that is heinous and hard and difficult to do, but also we defeated an enemy and I have a trophy to prove it. I've noticed that a lot of players, when they kill, let's say, a Hydra or a Wyvern or a Manticore, tend to take their teeth and claws. And the reason for that is because they want to have some form of trophy. So I think that's a good way. I think another good way is allow Excalibur to have a stone, in the sense of in a tomb or in a place that is revered of some kind of ancient ceremony. You allow for that flame tongue, which, by the way, might not be the greatest magic item, but it's a flaming sword. It looks cool. By the barest bones of fantasy, a flaming sword is dope. So you put that flaming sword in a tomb, you said it was used by an ancient king, and you make sure to give it a name. I like to name my magic items. And if my players don't ask for the name, that's fine, but it's something that I like to carry up on. There was a wand of lightning that I used for my recent campaign. It was given from Yanagu to a priest of Yanagu. And that priest used it to devastate a town because a gnoll with a magic item is a dumb idea. And the players fought back, but a hideous doppelganger named Greb stole the wand, and it became a tool used for essentially one of the main bad guys of the campaign to zap people randomly. And the idea of this little fucking halfling who's evil bouncing out of places and zapping folks is a great image. And then they defeated him. They learned that not only do they have that powerful wand of lightning, actually, I think it was destroyed in the battle. But either way, not only did he have that powerful wand of lightning, but on top of that, he had other stolen goods. So usually magic items kind of beget magic items. There's a weird way of you going, all right, this villain has a magic item. Does he have more? And you can kind of do that. One of the things I like to do is I like to roll for magic items and add them to a horde. And then look at the magic items descriptions and either take or add as I see fit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to give a villain kind of this gravitas as, yes, I am powerful. And you make sure to use those magic items. Don't just get a necklace of fireball and not use it, stupid. The villain will use his magic items. On top of that, however, make sure that when the players get it, they feel rewarded in the fact that they have achieved something that is groundbreaking and important. And if they go into a tomb to find Worm Tongue, make sure there's a boss battle there and maybe some other goodies besides just the, I say Worm Tongue, the Flame Tongue. Worm Tongue, just a creepy guy in a basement. Hello, I'm here to talk to the king. So I think there's a way to make sure that there is gravitas behind a magic item.
Sure.
And a good way is always to look back on what we see in magic items. Look back at our history. I think Excalibur is a great fit. And if it's more of the nefarious magic item that might be cursed, which you might want to give your players, I don't know, are you a bad DM? Maybe you are. Bad in the naughty sense.
Ooh.
Maybe you want to look at the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. That's a great example of a cursed item. It has a cool power, but it is fucking cursed.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, if you don't think my party is paying for that Book of Vile Darkness, they're in the third layer of hell. It's great.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think cursing an item is a really extremely effective way to give parties like really good magic items early on, but with the caveat of there's a downside, right? I remember when I gave, it was actually funny. It was, I know you're going to be listening to this, bud, so love you, buddy. But there's a guy, he used to be my roommate, and we were talking about magic items sometimes, and I'm like, I want to give your party a magic item sometime. And he was like, oh, well, like I just found that like cool sword. It would, suck if it was like, I forget what it's called. It's like the Sword of Bloodlust or something, or like Sword of Hunger. I'm going to have to look it up. Let's see. Sword of Vengeance. That's it.
There we go.
Oh, man. So the Sword of Vengeance is a +1 sword. But the sword is cursed and possessed by a vengeful spirit. And if that sword tastes blood, that sword wants to kill that person that you just hit. You can't like attack anyone else with it, or it's hard to, if you try to use other weapons, you have disadvantage, and you basically got to kill the person that you've attacked with it, or then like rest for a long time afterwards if you can't end up killing them in order to work off the effects. So Sword of Vengeance is a fun one because, give that to a level 2 party, but they're going to have to work off that curse over a long period of time before they make it just a +1 sword.
Right.
It's a great, great, great item because it's perfect for the level 2 party, in my opinion.
Well, and also, if you're just looking at cursing your level 2s, which you naughty, naughty boy, but if you are, I mean, you can look at the uncommon items and you can make little tweaks that can be a very annoying curse. Yeah. I think uncommon items should have annoying curses, not, hey, guess what? It's a sphere of annihilation over your head just because you touched that evil bag of holding that's snickering in the corner. That's not a good idea.
That's not fun.
But perhaps a broom of flying has inverted controls. There's a way to handle it.
Just like a wisdom saving throw. And if you fail the saving throw, then you're going like the opposite direction of which you wanted to move on the map. That would be a fun one.
And there's little tweaks like that you can do for magic items going forward, even up in rarity. I know the Tome of Clear Thought is like a very rare item, as most of the tomes that increase your ability scores are. However, something that you can do immediately is if you look at the Tome of Clear Thought, sure, it increases your intelligence, but maybe it also gives you madness.
Yeah.
Or a form of madness. And if you, let's say the Tome of Clear Thought, I know you use it once and it dissipates, but let's say you use it, you get mad, and then it's still around, and you use it again because you want to be smarter, but the madness is worse. And you could have a character go insane looming over a book. And while that seems a bit rude, I, for one, enjoy it. Or you could just have a wand that works like Ron's wand in the second Harry Potter book, where it's broken and backfires. A wand of polymorph that only works on you. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of play around with curses and make them awkward. I don't like making curses completely detrimental.
Yeah.
Because there are some points where you have a character and you really like that character. And maybe a cursed item is a great burden for them to carry. Or sometimes, like Frodo.
Yeah.
But sometimes it also can be like, man, that changes my entire character. And now your player isn't having fun.
Right.
Because you gave them the wrong ring. Like,
yeah.
the one wing. Look at it flaps. No, the one ring.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way to kind of navigate curses. I don't normally give curses to my players.
Right.
Mostly because I think the encounter half the time is more than enough.
Yep.
But right now, they're dealing with the Book of Vile Darkness. And let me tell you, that feels way more like a curse than a blessing. It just is the worst. And I made sure to make it sentient. I made sure to give it a personality because I like the idea of magic items having personality. And you can do that with any magic item. There is in the DMG a sentience, basically, table that you can use to help make magic items think. And one of my favorite campaigns I ever played in, we had a talking bag of holding.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And that thing was rude as fuck. If you know Star Wars The Old Republic, HK-47, it's basically his personality where he calls us meat bags. And we have to shove something in his mouth to shut him up.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm at max capacity. Stop. It was a lot of fun. So I think there's a way to make magic items a joy in D&D, mainly because they are some of the most exciting things you can give your players. But again, make sure it's the right time. Make sure you have the story gravitas to give it to them. And by the way, there are some things that just should be bought in a store. Like, I'll be honest, most potions feel like they could just be bought in a store. But maybe you raid a wizard's alchemy lab, and that's where you get the potion of storm giant strength.
Yeah.
You know, there's a way to handle those higher ups potions as well. Potions are great for early parties in my
Yeah, absolutely.
Consumables.
I have a couple of rules of thumb that I use for giving magic items to parties and stuff. And I really like hearing about curses because I do think curses are great for giving parties items that are probably a little bit overpowered for them right now, but it adds a little bit of hesitation to how they're going to use it and when. But I also like, and I'm going to let you in on one of my DMing secrets here.
Oh, no.
I really like giving people magic items, right? I don't like not giving people magic items. Just they're fun and they're great and I don't see them enough. So what I do is if someone rolls like a 20 on an investigation check or like they're searching the joint, they're getting through the place, they're scoping it out and say like, okay, maybe you rolled a 20 on the pickpocket or you rolled a 20 on this small little stash of things. I'll roll a magic item table A and give you, okay, you found a potion of healing or you found a level 2 spell scroll. Oh, you got really lucky. You found a bag of holding. And then as they level up and as they earn those items, like if they already have a bag of holding, I may swap out one of the items from table B or table C and put it into that magic item table A. Now, before a session starts, I will roll in my notes on magic item table B, especially for lower level parties. And if they get to the big hoard and there's not already a magic item there and they roll a 20 or they, get a really high roll, then I'll throw in an extra magic item from that. So maybe they do run into like, oh, you found a quiver with +1 ammunition with broadhead arrows that will do extra damage. Maybe you found like a ancient jar of oil, and that's the oil of slipperiness. I liked slipping those items in, especially if they do a really good job of searching a place, because it adds to that, oh man, I found something that I probably shouldn't have. And I say, yeah, that's probably true. But it adds to that sort of like accomplishment, like, oh, I feel great about my character, right? Like I did really well searching for this. I contributed to the experience. And that's fun. And that's a really good thing to give to the players, because then they're going to remember the act of finding that thing and the act of earning that thing as almost as much as they are going to be using that thing. So that's how I kind of handle the distribution of magic items. For the most part, I'll keep track of what players have, but as long as I'm not just handing out big items left and right, I just kind of learn to deal with it, right? And if I end up like, hey, my combat encounters are seeming a little weak, even though like I'm throwing, a deadly encounter at them that's at their level, and they just are rolling over these because they've got these items. I need to maybe not treat them like a level 5 party, and maybe should treat them like a level 6 party, right?
Time to throw in that astral dreadnought, boys and girls.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with, as they get stronger, just being like, yeah, I'll just make things harder now, because now they're equipped to handle more dangerous things. So why not give them more dangerous things to deal with? And that'll keep things interesting and fun.
Sure. And I think that there is this weird balancing act between DM and player when you actually give them a magic item. There are some DMs that just huck them out and don't really think about it, and they come back later and they're like, oh, I gave you that. That's right.
Yep.
And then there are some DMs that take meticulous notes. I don't think either is bad, but I do think on your initial giving, you should think about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I also think that there is one thing that is a DM's responsibility, which is if your player is confused over the nature of an item, you need to help guide them with it. I hate the concept of attunement, but it's in the game. They should know what it does. And if there comes a point where they get into an encounter and they fuck up and they didn't use the magic item when they should have, then they're going to feel bad and stupid. And that's not fun. I recently had a player who happens to be the lovely Mrs. Lich. I'm getting all choked up. No, the lovely Mrs. Lich. She recently yoinked a magic item that wasn't meant for the party.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave one of my powerful transmutation wizards a staff of power.
Oh.
And the party yoinked it from him before he could use it. My actual intention, and guys, I'll just say it now, the premise of that encounter was at the end of the wizard's fighting, he was supposed to snap it over his knee and have it explode.
Yep.
But since that's not what happened, they stole it. So those dirty, along with his spell book, they're the worst. They fucking yoinked that shit and ran. So
I mean, good for them, but
seriously, great for them. I mean, there was always a possibility, but I rolled sucky and they rolled well and they got the stuff. And right now, the lovely Mrs. Lich, her Yon T Warlock, has a staff of power.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk with how it works because, frankly, she is new to the spellcasting business. It's a new kind of player for her. I had to break down her spells. Then on top of that, this is what the staff can do. And then on top of that, some of the other things that she has that she can also do. So it almost turned into multi-level spell lists.
Yeah.
And for a player, that's a lot. And I think she kind of expected me to just throw her in the deep end, but I do think it is a DM's responsibility to sit down with their players and it's like, okay, I gave you this thing. Now let's talk about how that is used and how you can use it.
Yeah.
And let them see you as a DM who has not only a handle on the rules, because that allows kind of respect from your players, which is something you kind of need to run a session, frankly. But on top of that, it allows you to connect with your players and kind of get their first ideas of how they want to fucking use it.
Mm-hmm.
When she was just like, more fireball, I was like, that's going to my notes.
Yeah.
Fire resistant everything.
Yep.
So on top of that, though, I had another player, I think, on top of potions. Spell scrolls are great.
Yeah.
I recently, kind of as a joke to this same party, who have the Book of Vile Darkness, who made the Wish of the Deck of Many Things, who did all this stuff. They're up at level 11 now.
Whew.
The thing that I recently did was I love spell scrolls, and I gave them a spell scroll of True Polymorph.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of was meant to be. I gave it to them, and one of the spellcasters read it, and they didn't know what True Polymorph does because they've never gotten to that high level in D&D before.
Yeah.
They've always jumped to a campaign after like 10, 11, 12. This is the highest they've ever been. They've never had 9th level spells before.
Right.
So they are looking at it, and they're kind of scratching their heads. And eventually one of the players go, oh, cool, True Polymorph. That makes someone something forever.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not what that does. So I had to sit down with the spellcasters who read it and say, hey, True Polymorph is this. And I broke down what it could do. And then they go, holy shit. That is a great nuclear option. If we're ever in the corner, we could just break glass and manifest into a dragon. That's fucking awesome.
Right.
And that had to be something that I had to sit down and talk with them about because, again, I kind of see it as the DM's responsibility to take that on their back.
Yeah.
And go, hey, let me help you with this.
Right. Because I've seen times where someone wants to use the magic item, and frankly, on faults of my own, I haven't explained what it does very well yet. And then it's like, oh, well, like actually the item is kind of used like this, or like the effect is actually like this. That just sucks, right? I mean, listen, a player should take up the responsibility. I won't say how much because DMs like to vary on how much responsibility.
Sure.
But the player needs to take up responsibility for knowing at least some of their stuff. They, and knowing, their things. But magic items often break the typical rules. And so if you're going to have a magic item that definitely breaks some of those typical rules or pulls out spells that are not normally accessible, you should be at least more responsible for making sure they know how that is used, because you're going to have a better gaming experience in general if your players at least have a 5-minute talk from you of, hey, this is True Polymorph, this is what you can do with it. Because then it's like, as you said, oh, it's a great nuclear option. Oh, if we need to do this, then we can do that. Great. And then it's not just like, well, I turn the cane into a frog forever and use True Polymorph, boom. And then you're like, okay, well,
I'll see you in an hour.
Well, yeah, see you in an hour, Mr. King,
And the worst part is with True Polymorph, the king is still talking.
Yeah.
The premise between polymorph and True Polymorph, I believe, is the fact that polymorph, like you turn into something and you believe you are that thing. Like you can polymorph things into other things and they believe they are a shrimp if they turn into a shrimp. But True Polymorph is, you can look at just about anything in the monster manual, and depending on your level versus the CR, you can manifest into that thing, and that goes beyond beasties into like angels and shit, and you keep your brain. So
I definitely think that it's a good idea when you're giving magic items, whether they're scrolls or just anything, just to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page as far as what those things do. Especially like, I've seen people modify magic items like, oh, you've got a mastercraft item, which means that its attack rolls are +1. And it's like, oh, so it's a +1 sword. No, it's a mastercraft sword. So it's, yes, it is +1, but it's not +1 to damage. oh, well, like, that's weird. And it's like, if you don't explain that to a player, then there's going to be the issue of like, oh, well, I've been adding +1 damage for like the last 10 sessions. What do you mean that's not how that works? And that's just a mess. So yeah, whenever you do, whether you shower your players with magic items or not, probably make sure that they understand what they're getting into.
And I mean, there's always going to be magic items that they will be able to use right away, in the sense of you give them the sword and they smack things with the sword. Way to go. But there's also going to be items that they're going to have to sit on. You're going to have items that, like you said before, can surprise the DM later down the road.
Yep.
Potions work great as a one-time fix, and spell scrolls. And then there are other weirder magic items that you might see come up later. For instance, the Manual of Golem, a manual that allows you to essentially make a golem, which is a really, really cool thing to give to an early party and say, hey, if you save up, you can buy yourself this kind of golem.
Yeah.
Which maybe in the grand scheme of things, once you get, like, for instance, Flesh Golem, 50,000 gold, it doesn't really balance out. That's a lot of gold for just a golem that can theoretically die at those higher levels. But
yeah.
At the same time, you get to Frankenstein's monster for a while and manifest a monster of flesh and corpses that you've created of your own design.
Yep.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Give it more arms. Cool, bro. I think there are just cool magic items in the DMG and in other modules, although my biggest gripe with Wizards of the Coast is that they kind of gave you a ton of magic items in the DMG, and then for every every single module, they're just like, we'll toss you a couple. It's like, no. In the world of Cholt, I want a lot of Cholt magic items. I want to see what else.
And there's not even, I mean, besides D&D Beyond, which, and I know, like, I often talk about how great D&D Beyond is, but for how great it is, there's really not like a great catalog for all of the magic items. I mean, yeah, you go onto the site and it's like, okay, well, like, I'm going to look at collections and I'm going to look under magic items, right? And I'm just going to browse all the magic items that are available in the core books. Great.
Doc, stop! They're listening!
But it just, like, there's an element to that where it just doesn't feel right. I want to have those magic items in a roll table that is continually expanding. I want that roll table available for free from Wizards of the Coast. I don't want to have to create my own huge table, which I'm sure is out there. I'm sure someone is out there. Hey, if you know of such a thing, please message me. I want that. In my life. But yeah, like, there's not enough new magic items that are being added.
He didn't mean any of that.
And I think that certainly allows for room for people to add in their own magic items. And I think that's great. And we can talk about creating magic items some other time. But I think I really would have liked to see more input on, like, magic items that are specific for certain campaigns or certain, like, biomes and regions and campaign theming sort of deals. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a side tangent from just giving your players magic items, but Yeah, no, I agree. It is just a weird kind of situation that the community is in right now. When you look at all the magic items we've gotten in that first DMG, and then you look at modules and you're like, yeah. I would like more, please. Yeah. And that's actually, again, that's one of our gripes with Curse of Strahd back when me and John spoke about it. Yeah. Check out that episode. Yeah. Out on Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else you get good podcasts. I just want to say that was a really great episode. I enjoyed listening to you guys from the depths of the cell that I was locked in for a long time. Oh, was that it? Yeah, I think the blending in with the dragon chest with the editor goblin, it was kind of it was a rough time.
Checkmate, bitch.
But yeah, so I think we've kind of talked a lot about how to give your magic items to players, but I do want to just like go over everything quickly since we did talk about a lot. Sure. So first you mentioned, and I think this is probably the best and most important point, is to read the magic item. I sounded like a sheep. Read the magic item. But seriously, read the item description and figure it out, because that's going to give you a lot of insight of how you can give it, how you can flavor it, when you should give it, if you should give it. It'll just give you a lot of information if you know what you're doing.
Right. Read and digest it. Yes.
Yeah. Second, don't give your players the deck of many things, but making sure if you do give your players like really powerful items, why and how are you kind of planning to deal with that? Are you making things more powerful? Are you making it a cursed item? Is that item available to use but is under the ownership of somebody else? Are you prepared that if your party mobs them to lose that magic item to them? Those kind of considerations to balance the power of those items. And then also thinking up of cool ways to kind of distribute those items to players, whether they're finding the Master Sword in the center of the Lost Woods and they have to use their life force to pull it out of the ground, if they're being gifted it by a god, if you give it to them at first level as a campaign hook, or even if you just create like a roll table and, see, hey, you rolled a 20. Well, here's some free potions, or here's a bag of holding. Then I think lastly, just kind of talking about like making sure that your players know what they're getting, whatever you give them, and making sure that you yourself know what you're giving them, because then you can balance your games to make the experience more fun. But then they also know how to use those items correctly so that they can use them in their most opportune moments.
Right. I mean, there's that. I think that with all that being said, DMs, of course, these are tips. These are not hard and fast rules.
They're not?
If you really want to use the deck, but don't. But if you do, but don't. I think those are nice tips. And I know for some of you who heard the, yes, I know I can read. No, some of you don't. Don't test me, fuckos. I know some of you don't.
I find myself not reading monster stat blocks. Like, oh, this would be cool. And then I just forget. I just keep not reading the stuff. And I'm like, man, this guy is weak. Oh, that's because he could do this thing that I completely forgot about because I didn't read this before the session. Yeah. Read the description, people.
Right.
Do it.
This guy is weak. And then you look down and it's just like, oh, what is that? Soul harvesting? Oh, I should have been using that.
Yeah.
He is CR 28. Yeah. So there is a way to handle it. I have a question for you, Doc.
Yeah.
Give me your top 3 favorite magic items.
Oh, okay. So I mentioned it before, but Sword of Vengeance. I haven't used that one in a long time, but I really like Sword of Vengeance. I think it's a fun one to pop onto a new party. Second, Oath Bow.
Really?
I really do like the Oath Bow. I know it's a high level item. It's a wondrous, very rare item. But you whisper to your bow, "Swift defeat to my enemies," and it says back, "Swift death to those who have," or wait, "Swift death to you who have wronged me," and or like, wait, no, it's the other way. Whatever, it's cool,
right?
I mean, it's like, and it does cool damage, and honestly, it is a little bit on the weaker side for being very rare, but it's still like super cool. Like it's a super cool bow.
That's also because D&D has a long history of hating archers.
Yeah.
Look for another bow in that fucking DMG magic item thing. Yeah. Look for another one.
Yeah, you're not going to find one. And then the last one, I'm just trying to think of, it was this is going to sound really dumb, right? But it was simply armor that had resistance to fire damage.
Oh.
But the thing is that I gave it a quirk from within the DMG, and it had an intimidating presence. So what I did is I had a dungeon, and based off the things that I rolled and found, I basically said that the dungeon was once inhabited by priests of Ashardalon, and that this armor that I specifically made the same type of armor for one of the current party members was basically like an ancient soldier's uniform for the Temple of Ashardalon and the ancient worshippers of Ashardalon. But it gave this intimidating presence. So yes, it can intimidate people, but if you stroll into town with this thing, you're going to get noticed by the guards. They're going to come up to you and be like, yo, like, there's something going on with you. Like, can we take you in for questioning? And it made some really cool role-playing moments, even though it really wasn't a super powerful item.
Right.
And it made them question, like, all right, well, like, I got to take this leather armor off before I go into town. Does that mean if I get jumped, that I'm going to be able to survive? How should I handle all of that? You know, should I buy a cloak to cover it? But then if I need to intimidate someone, do I need to Superman myself to intimidate them? Like, they started asking a lot of really cool questions that made their role-playing experience really neat. And so that was probably one of my favorite drops, was just this simple resistance armor that had this quirk to it.
I agree. I love it. Okay. So, I need to give mine. Okay.
Yeah. What's yours?
All right. So 4, I know I said 3, but 4 is all the wands. I love wands. I love them. I love using them. I don't know why.
Yep.
But then 3 is the Afridi bottle. I love the concept of a genie in a bottle. And I love the fact that Afridi are not nice genies. And the fact that they're doing a genie patron warlock in Unearthed Arcana and also in the actual Tasha's big old pot of a lot of shit. I really like the concept behind just genies expanding in D, and the fact that you play a patron of one is going to be fun for me.
Yeah.
I want to know if it's broken or not, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of a genie in a bottle, either popping out, attacking a party, giving a party a wish, or just skittling away. I also like, from kind of my number 2, weirdly enough, is the Well of Many Worlds. It is a silk black cloth that you lay over a area, a surface, and it manifests into a portal that goes to a place that the DM picks.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm a forever DM. It is a great narrative tool for a party or a villain that can run around the multiverse, and he whips out a handkerchief and jumps into a portal. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And my number 1 of all magic items has to be the Pipe of Remembrance from Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Ooh.
I love the concept of an adventurer in a tavern smoking on a pipe, telling a story.
Yep.
The smoke manifests into what the story is.
Yeah.
I love having adventurers go up to other adventurers, telling them what happened. I love the idea of a dwarf describing a battle with a phoenix or a dragon. I love that concept.
That is fantastic.
It is one of my favorite concepts in Dungeons and Dragons, and I almost hurled that pipe at my party recently. It is just a cool concept, and I think that it's a common item. It's not the immovable rod. It's not the bag of holding. It is something that allows your players to go, hey, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
And sit a bunch of people down and do something really, really cool and explore their exploits, because they're adventurers, they're heroes. And part of being a hero is telling that hero story. It's a great bard item. It's a great dwarf item. I don't know why a dwarf pipe is the greatest thing of all time, but it is. I genuinely think that it is one of my favorite magic items, if not my favorite.
Yeah.
My least favorite's the Deck of Many Things, but my first favorite. Oh, and I guess number 5 is Bag of Beans. I would love the Bag of Beans.
All right, I need an honorable mention. I need to put an honorable mention in here. The common magic item, the Cloak of Billowing.
Oh, okay.
From Xanathar's, because it was fun, and I had it in a pile of dirty laundry that a bunch of kobolds had and made the heroes fold. It's a long story, but they found this and they were like, hey, can we have this? And they were like, sure. It's just, a rag. And they were like, okay. So they wore it and they're like, well, what's the activation word? And so the guy's like, well, I looked for the tag. And I'm like, okay. So and I'm trying to stall for time. And I'm like, okay. So the one side is the washing instructions. It's, cotton. So, use cold water, and you flip over the other side. I'm still trying to think of a word. The other side says, And then one of the players just says Calvin Klein, and I'm like, whoosh, it billows. But then I realized that it's only supposed to be the person that is wearing it that says it. But then I was like, oh, well, anyone can say it. So
whatever.
So it was the rogue who was always trying to seduce people that was wearing this cloak. So whenever he was talking to people, being like, hey, you want to go upstairs and, meet rent a room? They'd always be like, Calvin Klein from across the room, and just whoosh, and all of a sudden this cloak just goes billowing everywhere. Oh my word.
I thought it was going to be Mr. Clean is right behind you.
But it was a lot of fun to use an item that could always bring some levity, because whenever there was like a dark situation and they were in, it was just like, someone would just shake their head and say Calvin Klein, and just like whoosh, the cape would go up, and then it was funny again. So great item.
I really hope that one day this podcast gets big enough for that we to have items named after us.
Aww.
Doc's big old tent and Brill's weird obscene gesture machine where it just flips people off, little box that pops out.
That's fantastic. I'd be super down for that.
Absolutely.
Pitchin' tent. Yeah, great. Good. Thank you. I'm honored.
Right. I'm sorry. Doc's toe sucking machine. All right, everybody, we're going.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Doc, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate you sitting down with me. It's always great.
Hey, it was good to be back. So glad to be back.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. See ya.
Bye. Don't use the deck of many things. Goodbye.
I'll take a chance. Flame card. That seems good. I'm probably fine.
You've just been listening to DumpStat, a podcast presented by Horizon Kingdoms. Horizon Kingdoms is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition server that's free to play. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and join up on Discord to join in on a new adventure. For more DumpStat, be sure to find us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe.